So it's great to be with you all today. For those of you I don't know, I'm Lindsay Gleason, and I'm new at the Community Foundation. I started in April as our assistant director, focusing on communications and fundraising. We have Give Local next week, which was one of my projects, our Giving Day. So we're excited about that. And I also work on Third Thursdays. So it's great to be with you all. And so I can let our panelists introduce ourselves, but just to share a little bit, just a few housekeeping things. I think you were all on the call when I said we're recording. Feel free to have your camera on or off, whatever you prefer. We'll be here until 10. And if you can keep yourself on mute, unless you're talking, that would be great. And we'll do what we're planning on is maybe 30 minutes of panel questions, and then we'll have time at the end for questions. And you're welcome then to unmute and ask your question or type them in the chat, and I'm happy to share them, whatever you prefer. And so we're just excited here today to hear from Chris and Mickey and Andre. So I'll let you all introduce yourselves and maybe just share a little bit about the organization you're with. Mickey, if you would like to kick us off, please do.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Mickey Hickman. The actual given name is Michael, but Michael was when I was in trouble. So I all my life been known as Mickey. I'm a lifelong native of Pulaski, Virginia. And because I lived there, I had the opportunity to go to Calfee Training School. I grew up enrolled in Calfee in the 55-56 school year. And that was in the midst of segregation. So Calfee Training School was an all-Black school, a segregated school. And so I went there grades 1 through 7. There was no kindergarten at that time. And then there was no Black high school in Pulaski, so there was an arrangement for Calfee students to go to Christiansburg Institute. And so I attended Christiansburg Institute 2 years, 8th grade and 9th grade. Got wind that they were getting ready to close the school down. It turned out it lasted another year, but I transferred to Pulaski High School in the 10th grade and then 10th, 11th, and 12th grade there. The Calfee Training School has a lot of meaningful memories for me, and I could talk forever on that, but I won't. But those teachers laid the foundation for me to have whatever success that I've had. And so I became an educator and blah, blah, blah. 2 years ago, 2019, word got out that they were resurrecting the Calfee Training School building, repurposing it. And so I was, Guy Smith approached me about it. And Guy has a project going to T.G. Howard Community Center, but he told me about Calfee and I was very intrigued. And so they asked me to apply to be on the board of directors, which I did, and I was selected. And after the first meeting, they thought maybe I had leadership abilities. And so I was elected president of the Calfee Community and Cultural Center Board of Directors. And so I've joyfully served in that capacity since 2019, and we're doing wonderful work. And I'm also a member of the CI alumni group, and I haven't been able to attend as many meetings but I keep an eye and ear open to what they're doing, and they're doing exciting things. And I appreciate Chris Sanchez and all, and they're wonderful partners. They show up at our events and things. And so I just love this renaissance of Black history, especially it includes a time period that's a part of my life that I hold dearly. And so that's a lot longer intro than most people, but you'll find out I'm long-winded. So hopefully you know who I am and know a little bit about me now.
Thank you so much. And Chris and Debbie and Andre, please feel free.
Yeah, sure. So Hey, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Chris Sanchez, and I have the tremendous honor and privilege of serving as executive director at the Christiansburg Institute. With me is Miss Debbie Sherman-Lee. And Debbie attended briefly the CI and serves as the chair of our board of directors. And then we also have Andre Hash. Andre can introduce himself as well.
Good morning, y'all. It's good to see some familiar faces, and greetings to folks who I haven't met before. My name is Andre Hash. I'm like Mr. Hickman. I also grew up in Pulaski, and I'm grateful to be Christiansburg Institute Incorporated's new development director. Joined the team in April. So similar to Lindsay, you get to focus on things like fundraising, communication, and other operational things like that. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you all today about Juneteenth.
And we could also talk more about CI as a nonprofit, which I'm sure we'll get into that just through natural discussion. I really, really want to echo Mr. Hickman's statement that there's like this movement happening. There's an intergenerational movement of young people and elder people of all ages coming together across Southwest Virginia to preserve the vastly underpreserved, yet daily pursued to be better preserved African American history. And so we celebrate that in this space today.
Absolutely. It's been a long time coming, and it's exciting to see all the work that you all are doing. So, and feel free to answer these questions in whatever order you'd like in terms of who would like to speak. But we'd love for you all to share with us today about the history and significance of Juneteenth. I know that for a lot of folks, it's hasn't always been on our radar, particularly for white folks. And so it's been exciting to hear it become more of a part of the national conversation and become a federal holiday. So we just love to hear from you all just a bit of history about it that you'd like to share.
I'm gonna talk so much, Mr. Hickman. I'm gonna bow to you right now.
Well, I was a history teacher during my professional teaching career, 21 years as a teacher, 21 years as an administrator. But when I was a classroom teacher, I taught American history and also American government. Those were separate classes. And I didn't know about Juneteenth. I'm sorry, I had to confess that, and there I was teaching history. And also it's relatively new to me. And it made perfect sense. What Juneteenth is about is when the slaves were officially free. You know, the war was fought, and the North eventually won, and there was a surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. In between that, Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation happened. But what people don't realize about the Emancipation Proclamation, a lot of people say that freed the slaves. Yes, Lincoln freed the slaves, but he freed the slaves in the Confederate States, which he didn't have really control of that time. And it was a political move. And so he pronounced the slaves free, and that was what it was about, but the slaves really weren't free because the Confederate government and army, military, and all had control of those states then. But it set the stage. It gave the Union a purpose then, and that was to end slavery. And so that's what it was good about. One other thing, and I know it looks like I'm casting shade on Lincoln, but there was a entity in the Civil War, they were called border states. And these were states that didn't secede from the Union, but they were states that had slaves, that had slavery in them, but they remained in the Union. Lincoln didn't free those slaves. So he didn't free the slaves where he had control of, and did free the slaves where he didn't. So it was a political maneuver. And so I want to make that clear. And then Juneteenth is when it was all tidied up, and on June 19th, and I think it occurred in Texas or something, but that's my understanding, and all this is relatively new history, but I appreciate that Juneteenth happened for me and my ancestors. So that's my contribution right here.
Yeah, I can come at that from, you know, my unique experience, which is, quite frankly, I'm a Yankee, right? I grew up in the North. I was raised outside of Detroit, in Oregon, was born in Chicago, and my first Juneteenth was that I experienced was right here in Montgomery County in Southwest Virginia. I attended the NAACP Juneteenth celebration, I think in 2017. And this was before the federal holiday was made such. A lot has happened since then. That was my first Juneteenth. I'm now 33. That was roughly 4 years ago. So I was in my late 20s. And no one had ever told me about Juneteenth prior to that. Now, I grew up in public schools and K through 12. I did some college and determined a different path for my life. Throughout all of that, I had no idea what Juneteenth was. And so this just speaks to the truth that a tremendous amount of African-American history, culture, stories, and lives continue to be revealed, rediscovered, and we hope we work daily to properly and fully honor that history. So I come into this not growing up under Jim Crow, not having any deep connection to the South, being a member of the Black diaspora in this country. I've learned a tremendous amount of that narrative just as it's unfolded right here in our backyard in the New River Valley.
Well said, Chris.
I've got nothing further to add. I just want to chime in really quick and with some of the other names that's been given to Juneteenth over the years. And I think it's really important to center that and why perhaps many of us haven't been as aware of Juneteenth as a historical event or a holiday. Is, you know, some of the other names, it's referred to as Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, Jubilee Day. So these are, you know, we're celebrating liberation, we're celebrating joy, Black joy. And I'll just say that I think it's intentional. I think it's not by accident that these histories, Juneteenth was a mystery to many of us until our 20s, 30s, or later in life. I don't think it's by coincidence. When again, you think about a holiday that celebrates Black liberation and Black joy, there's, I think, intentional strategies to help marginalize and not amplify those holidays. So I don't think it's any personal responsibility or duty on any of us. I think it reflects on a system that continues to marginalize Black histories.
And as you continue to transition, I do want to welcome Demaya Smith, who is one of our new hires, our scanning technician, lives here locally. We squat up when we come out and we want to show people who we are and what we're about. So we had Demaya join us today as well.
Well, welcome. You all have been doing a lot of hiring lately. It's been great to see your team expand. That's wonderful. So thank you all for sharing. So this year, in what ways is our region celebrating Juneteenth? And what more could be done, do you think, to uplift this holiday and celebration? And not necessarily by you all, but our whole community. You all do a lot. Mr. Hickman, you're on mute.
Yes, I was trying to unmute, but I had finally had sense enough to go to the bottom. I'm technologically challenged sometimes, but well, I attended my first Juneteenth was over in Montgomery County, and I wanted to say hi to Miss Debbie back there. She's a beautiful person, and she shows up for everything. She's so supportive. So she crosses county lines and comes into Pulaski all the time. But that was my first awareness. It might have been the same one Chris was referring to. I blend the years in, my memory does that, so I don't know exactly the year. But this year over in Pulaski County, we're having a Juneteenth on this Sunday, a Juneteenth celebration. And it's the Calfee Community and Cultural Center is collaborating with the Wilderness Road Museum in Newbern and the libraries there in Pulaski County. And so we're doing a celebration to commemorate that day. And so we're excited about it. And we, of course, we're trying not to step on neighbors' celebrations or anything like that, but this is a first time venture so we've been trying to promote it, and we have no idea how many people will show up, but we think it'll be a good celebration. We're doing several things. My pastor, Reverend Dr. Elston McLean, has come to us from Mississippi and Knoxville, Tennessee, and now he's a pastor at Randolph Avenue Methodist Church. And one of his talents and passions is he plays the African drum quite well, and he has a ministry, and so he's taught that. And my youngest grandson, he didn't get it from me because I have no rhythm, can play those drums and things, and so they're going to perform. My wife, who's a retired music teacher, she has rhythm, she plays it, and my brother-in-law's in the group. So they're going to do several different drum beats. In fact, that's their name, the drum beats. And so they'll be peppered throughout the Juneteenth celebration. We have a storyteller, a gentleman from Atlanta, the Atlanta area, that's going to come up, and he's going to do some role plays and talk. I think he's going to be one of the first things is he's going to be this slave Solomon who walked from Georgia to Pulaski County, and he's going to tell his experiences about, walking, after being free from slavery. So, of course, this will be fictionalized, but it'll be based on history and all. We have the Glorylanders. I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to hear the New River Valley Glorylanders. They're going to sing 4 to 6 songs, gospel music, along with jazz and blues. It's a part of Black culture, and now it's a part of the American culture and all. But they're going to do some songs. They're an a cappella group, so that should be a good thing. And then I've heard this man speak a couple of times. He's a Pulaski native, Dr. Tal Stanley of Emory and Henry University, is a Pulaski native, but he's studied local history. And I've heard him speak on 2 occasions, and he's fabulous. He increased my knowledge, and he told me things I didn't know. He talked about the number of slaves in Pulaski County. I didn't realize how huge the slave population was in Pulaski County. 1 out of every 3 people that lived in Pulaski County after the Civil War were slaves. And I didn't realize that population was that huge. But he told things like this: people were free, or they bought their way out of slavery sometimes, and immediately the local government said that they had to get out of town. So there was a caveat to buying your freedom. You had to turn around and leave the area. So sometimes a person would free themselves through a purchase, but they wanted to stay around their family and be a free person, but that wasn't allowed. And so consequently, people ended up selling themselves back into slavery. So Dr. Stanley talked about that and pointed out that concept, which, I found just thoroughly alarming and confusing and amazing, all those things. And when I think about Juneteenth, I was thinking, how many people stayed on it, served in slavery, having no idea that they were free and all. So, the communication wasn't as instantaneous back then as it is now. So I bet you there are countless stories of people not knowing that they were free and still remaining in that condition. But that's, we're also having a cornbread competition that's related to Calfee, because one of our heroes at Calfee School was Miss Lena Huckstep. She was the cook. And the favorite meal at Calfee, once a week, we were going to have cornbread and pinto beans. And her cornbread was like a milkshake and ice cream and a good hamburger and a hot dog all rolled into one. It was great, and it was to die for. And she put the butter on it. And some of the boys, we would, when you were a seventh grader, you could volunteer to fold up chairs and wipe out tables and things, and she'd give you an extra slice of cornbread. And she even gave cornbread to students to take home to their younger brothers and sisters. So she was just a hero. And so that's why we're having the cornbread competition in her honor and all. But that's gonna be the Pulaski Juneteenth, the drums, the Glory Landers, the storyteller, and Dr. Stanley. So this is our inaugural event. So, also a reenactment where the Confederate soldiers surrender the Confederate flag to the USCT, United States Colored Troops, I think it was. So a reenactment of that, so a little ceremonies. So I hope that's intrigued you, and you're welcome. A favorable admission, no charge for it, just come on. And it's in the middle of New Bern. The first hour and a half is just walking around, milling and socializing. The programming begins at 3:30 and it's over at 5.
And it's not just milling around and socializing. There'll be lots of historical displays and people out there talking about the history of slavery and so forth. So there's a lot going on from 2 to 3:30, and the official program starts at 3:30.
Hi, Jill.
Hello.
Jill's the executive director. Well, we have to say acting executive director because of some technicalities, but she's with the Calfee Community and Cultural Center.
I think that means we're up.
Yeah.
I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
Check it out. So good brother, Mr. Hickman, shared a tremendous amount of really exciting things happening in Pulaski. We will be there to bear witness to that, and to honor and celebrate, our shared history right here in Southwest Virginia. I just want to quickly pivot back to a particular factoid that Mr. Hickman shared, that Pulaski, I believe he shared, was 1 in 3 people were enslaved. This is important data for us to keep at the center as we think about Juneteenth. I don't think that's like a controversial thing to say at this point. But the truth is, Montgomery County also was heavily enslaved, right? It is a fact that slave labor, the trafficking of human beings, built a lot of Montgomery County's economy, right? And so we are still today better understanding the depth to which that is actually true. We are still today recovering names of enslaved people on land that we just discovered was in fact a plantation. This is all still very much yet to be revealed and to be understood and to be stewarded. So I think we're all celebrating that Juneteenth is a national holiday. I think we're also mindful of how we have a tendency in this country to turn these sacred holidays into brands, unfortunately, right? Can we be honest about that? So I think we want to make sure that as we center Juneteenth and we talk about the history, that we're also talking about the fullness of that history and how that history directly intersects with families today here in Montgomery County, in Pulaski, and in the New River Valley. With that being said, so we are not having a Juneteenth celebration. Unfortunately, this year at CI, we had to cancel last minute due to some unforeseen circumstances. We are extremely excited to be planning for next year. So here's what we're doing. We're just going to point to all the incredible Juneteenth celebrations happening across the NRV. Yeah. Pulaski, you've heard about Pulaski. We will be there. Check out Roanoke, right? Roanoke is doing an incredible Juneteenth celebration. And again, the NAACP, I think after 2 years of not being able to do Juneteenth due to COVID, they're showing back out at Rosa Peters Playground to do a Juneteenth celebration. That site in and of itself has tremendous African-American history and culture attached to it, that particular playground. And in Floyd too, there was also a Juneteenth celebration. So, and 4 or 5 years ago, you would ask people what Juneteenth was. I would be that person asking what Juneteenth was. And you might hear like, oh yeah, my family celebrates that as a barbecue in our backyard, right? Look at the attention though. And look at what the events happening in American life that are contributing to the interests, right? And to the recognition and to the desire for honesty and truth telling. So we're going to continue to pursue truth telling and honesty. And while we do that, point to all the other truth tellers doing this incredible work on a grassroots level across the region.
Chris, I was sorry to hear about your postpone, the cancellation of your Juneteenth, but Montgomery County has, carried the flag, been the standard bearer in the past. I wouldn't know about Juneteenth had it not been for what Montgomery County, the folks over there were doing, the NAACP and CI. So yes, welcome. Come on over to Pulaski.
Thanks to all of you. And one thing that strikes me when Chris was talking is, I think sometimes when something happens like a federal holiday, not that that's so often, but something that feels symbolic, it kind of feel like, I think for some people, it's like, oh, okay, we got that. So the work is done. And when I say some people, probably white folks, right? Like, oh, great, we got that, but the work continues and this matters. And having a holiday and is really important, but work continues, just like Chris said, of truth telling and learning more. And so it's I think for a lot of folks, it has just been in the past few years where we're hearing it talked about more. So when you think about folks attending these celebrations, what are you hoping that people learn about our region and our culture and our history? What do you hope some of those takeaways are for folks?
I've been going first, but I'm not going to go first this time. Andre, Chris, Jill, anyone?
Demaya just chimed up a little bit. Go ahead, Demaya.
Just that it happened, because a lot of people, because I grew up in the region, and you don't assume like how big of an industry slavery was. So just to be aware that it simply happened in the NRB is a thing.
And I would add too, and to Mr. Hickman's point on the front end, talking about Abraham Lincoln, Black people showed out in masses armed to defend their freedom. They were leaving plantations in the South to join the ranks of the Union military. So I think we also should be recognizing that as we talk about Juneteenth and emancipation, it wasn't just simply policy and legislation, though that was important. It was the masses of Black people refusing to be recognized and enslaved and taking meaningful material action to change that outcome. I think we could benefit tremendously from that wisdom today.
And I like this current movement, this renaissance is the term that I used back in the beginning of this session. But I find it amazing because I think we all would admit that we seem to have been taking backward steps when it comes to race relations in this country. And so at the same time, when we have that movement going on, we have this other movement that's just opposed to that going on, where things like Juneteenth has been recognized, and like CI has been rebirthed, and so is CALFE and T.G. Howard, and so we're a 501c3, and so our genesis and if we were to come to fruition, has been based on grants and donations. And so many of our gifts and things have been from the white community, white Americans. I hate to make us sound divisive like that, but that illustrates how you have this out there, this ugly movement in my eyes going on, but at the same time, you have this beautiful movement going on. Maybe it doesn't get all the national publicity, but I'm aware it's going on, and it touches my heart. I'm aware of both. I'm saddened by one, but I'm gladdened by the other, that these things are going on. And so I'm hoping all three, in this area, T.G. Howard and CI and CalFE, that we all come to fruition, the dream that we have for those places now. And so, and I'm heartened, and I think we will have success. And plus, we had a little thing called COVID thrown in there too, just to make it a little harder. But that's how Blacks have had to walk through history. It's never just been an easy stroll. It's always been, treacherous and hard times, on our journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And something that strikes me when you all were talking, I think Andre said this, of the stories that something to the effect of the stories we heard growing up in school, the things that we didn't hear is really interesting to look back now, and the reasons why we don't hear certain parts of history is because of systemic injustice and just like you were saying, Chris, of the things that we're still discovering, and the work that CalFE and CI are doing to share stories of people who maybe never had their stories told is just so critical. Please go ahead, Chris.
So, wow. One thing we do that we love to do is give tours of the historic Edgar A. Long building, which is one of the last remaining structures from CI's 100-year life. Right here in Seaburg on Scattergood Drive behind Dairy Queen. And there will be a day when we do not have to reference Dairy Queen as the landmark to where CI's campus used to be. With that being said, we give tours to all ages in the building. And we gave a tour not long ago to a group of students, African-American students at Christiansburg High School. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of you do, the high school itself is built on CI's former campus. These students were seniors. And as they walked in the building, and we tell this story often, Miss Debbie and I, they said, I've gone to school here my entire life, K through 12, public schools, and I had no idea about this history. I had no idea about its century of life and contribution, innovation, and education, and its deep connection to slavery in the South. Well, why don't we know these things? And then not even 2 years later, Juneteenth became a federal holiday. What is the contradiction there? So we want to celebrate the federal holiday, and we do, absolutely. And as Black people, we know it's important to pause and really lean into that joy and really celebrate it. We also understand the tension of needing to push forward and demand more, because so much more is owed, so much more. In fact, I'm at a point now, we ain't talking about equity unless we're talking about cutting checks. That's a financial term. That's a financial term. It's got confused with ethics and morality and justice, right? So I think, again, in the truth-telling work that we're doing, we want to center joy and healing, communal healing for all of the Black community, and then also be like, yeah, we got a lot of work to do, and our elders will not be here forever. This is a intergenerational moment that is so urgent. I'm sure in Pulaski, you all hear it all the time. We hear it in Montgomery County. Will we get to see the building done before we die? These are the people who grew up under Jim Crow. Whoa. What is our community response? What can we do in 100 years, right? I think these are the questions that we're asking ourselves, and we're asking friends, allies, and supporters in the community as well.
Thank you, Chris. That actually touches a little bit on my last question. I mean, I always have a million questions, but I'll let others ask questions. So when you all think about beyond Juneteenth, would you like to see nonprofit leaders support your all's efforts for all the work that you're doing in the community? What can we do as your colleagues and friends in the community to uplift your work, support you all?
Mickey, you want to take this one? Like we can boogie.
Well, we all have a handout now. That's the elephant in the room. We can use all the financial support that we can get, but PR, just when you're somewhere talking to folks in your circle that you can mention, I keep repeating CI, Calfee, TG Howard. You'll know more after today about those movements. And so I hope you'll give us lip service in the future to people and just spread things. We've gotten some publicity, some stories sometimes on television, on radio, and in the print media. And of course, we do the online thing. But sometimes word of mouth, just talking about us and these particular 3 5013Cs and just C3s is a benefit. It seems like it's slower and all that way, but believe me, it's the most effective way. I think. I know maybe not as quite as much right now, but there was a time whenever I went into Walmart in Dublin, Virginia, it was people because of stories that appeared in the local newspapers and things. People would ask me about the Calfee Project, and they were just delighted with the story. They would encourage me, say, we're doing great work. I am working, but there's so many other wonderful people in our organization doing working all. And so I'm just thinking they know about the building, what we're trying to do, the child care center and the digital lab and all those things, the community kitchen, those things are wonderful. But lastly, what they're learning about is the history, because I make sure to pepper any conversation I have about our organization about this history, because some of it was new to me and I was astounded by what I didn't know. And there I was, a history professional, teaching that in the classroom. So I know the common layperson didn't know these things. And so I've learned from what Chris has been, what they published about CI. I went there 2 years. I was so busy being a student, I didn't know all this history and things, but thank God for Chris and Debbie and Andre and all that. They're informing me. And our church folk, I go to a predominantly Black church, Randolph Avenue Methodist Church. And so periodically I give updates, and it's a joy for me to share these things that I've learned from my brothers here. And so that is just word of mouth, just talking, getting people comfortable with us, getting people in the know about us and all. And so, and then also, if you'll make a gift every now and then, that helps. And also, those are my things. So, Chris, I don't know what you want. You could probably say this more eloquent than me. So,
I can actually chime in here a little bit to offer some perspective. And I just want to say, Jennifer, I keep seeing your cat run across the screen. They seem to have a lot of energy this morning. It's hilarious. So at CI Inc., from a development perspective, I think what we're trying to do is meaningfully integrate all of our programs and events into the strategies to help us build power. So that's what we need from not just nonprofit leaders, but constituents, anybody who wants to support CIs to help us build power. And what do I mean by that is, the crux upon which all this rests is relationships. So I think the number one thing, similar to what Mr. Hickman had just shared, is engage in meaningful relationships, be in proximity, be visible, and join the mission and vision of the respective organizations that are holding Juneteenth programs, Juneteenth events. But I think when it comes to historic preservation work, mostly I want to talk about, just building power, because that's what we have to get if we were going to fully renovate these historic spaces and really build in to the next phase of life for what our respective organizations are doing. one of the things we often say at CI Inc. is, Christiansburg Institute is a school, right? And so what does it look like in this season to be a school where we talk about education and empowerment? And so, yeah, obviously we need capital. We need resources like infrastructure, labor, intellectual property, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we have access to all that through relationships. So if folks are interested in supporting Christiansburg Institute, I can say the most accessible way is to begin by building relationships with the staff, with our board, to figure out how to plug in and engage. And again, to Mr. Hickman's point, we live in a capitalist society, so capital is probably the chief way to support some of these efforts. But more meaningfully and sustainably, it's all about those relationships.
I only want to highlight how power is involved in everything, everything. And the disempowered know that the most. And so we are also about building power, because with power comes autonomy and self-determination. And that is just something Black people collectively in this part of the state, I'm sure elsewhere too, I just live here and I'm in this community, have just not experienced. So when you see Mr. Hickman and the elders out there in Pulaski, and you see Miss Debbie Sherman Lee and elders and young people out here, or you go to Roanoke and Gainesboro and you see the work going down there, like this is about building power in the Black community. And we need y'all to trust that too, right? Whoa, there's a lot of trust involved there. And to Andre's point, that's where relationship becomes most sustainable and most impactful. And then what transforms out of those relationships? And so I just echo what Andre has shared. Help us build power by getting to know us and coming closer to the issue.
Well put, y'all. Yeah, appreciate that. Well, hey, I've been asking a lot of questions here and would love to hear from any of our audience. If you all have questions that you'd like to share, and please feel free to raise your hand if or unmute, put your question in the chat, all kinds of avenues to get your question out there.
Well, hi, I'm Lorraine Blakemore with the YMCA at Virginia Tech, and actually CCI and CALFI, you've been on my list for a while. We really need to talk and get to know you, but the YMCA this year actually became part of Rural Welcoming America initiative, and we just attended a conference in Charlotte, which Charlotte was being recognized after years of work as a welcoming city. And part of that process involved an acknowledgement of the land that was originally owned by the tribes in the area, but also an acknowledgement and apology of the slaves whose back that city was built on. So this is something that we're feeling this area needs to kind of embrace that as well. So I know that Dina, our Director of International Programs, is definitely looking forward to getting in touch with you and working with you to become more involved in the Rural Welcoming Initiative. There's a welcoming week coming up in September. So that's something we wanted to talk to you about sharing the different cultures in the area and kind of recognizing and acknowledging the people that live here and that have lived here. So we will be getting in touch pretty soon, but just wondered about your thoughts on, you know, how a lot of cities are doing these acknowledgement and apology statements of the landowners and the slaves in the area. Any thoughts on how we can make that happen around here, I guess?
I'll be brief here. As a grassroots community organizer to the core, I firmly believe that the community itself should determine what they would like to do, which means that there is no one size fit all for interpreting the trauma of slavery and slave trafficking and Jim Crow South. I firmly believe that it needs to be up to the community. So right here in Montgomery County, we know that there were enslaved people auctioned an auction block in the public square. This is a fact of the historical record. We worked 3 years with the Montgomery Museum. Casey's on the call. I see his screen is out, but he's on the call and he was a part of that process. So for 3 years, we said to ourselves, what do we want to do in Montgomery County to honor this history and tell its truth? Black community said, we'd like to put up storyboards to interpret local African-American history and do it balanced. So we will talk about slavery, but we will also talk about education and community life. And that will be the presentation to balance out the fullness of African-American life in Montgomery County. I'm telling you right now, if Montgomery County folks were like, we want to take down these Confederate monuments, I would have been like, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. But as a grassroots organizer, centering directly affected voices, and I'm sure Andre can talk more about that, that's what we firmly believe in, that the people themselves closest to the issues need to be the ones to make and determine the solution.
Yeah, and just to chime off or piggyback off of that, I think that one of the foundational principles of that spirit of community organizing that I'll just lift up that Chris had talked about is that a concept of altering relationships of power. And so when we talk about building power, right, there are traditional paradigms where power tends to be hoarded by a select few, right, folks with access to privilege and power, and then yeah, there are hierarchies therein. And so how do we dismantle systems, structures, practices, cultures that uphold those paradigms where, again, there's an exclusive few at the top of a paradigm and the rest are at the bottom. So we want to alter relationships to where community members, specifically those who have traditionally, through systems of oppression, have not been given access to power, have meaningful leadership in some of that. So that's what informs a lot of our approach to not only, again, our programs and events, but how we want to model ourselves as stewards of the story of CI.
If it's okay, Dr. Hickman, I'll jump in and say something here too, because I agree with everything that Chris and Andre just said. I work, in addition to work with CALFI, I work with groups around the country who are doing this acknowledgement, truth-seeking, truth-telling work. And not only is it important to let local folks or to have local folks make these decisions on how this should move forward, because it's their right to make those decisions and that there needs to be respect, but it's also because it's practical. It's, one thing we've really seen in Pulaski, we have folks showing up at our school board meetings arguing about critical race theory. Some of those folks are also the biggest supporters of what we're doing in Pulaski. They don't make the connection. I think their opposition to what they talk about is, or what they understand to be critical race theory, is based on this idea that this is something being imposed on us from outside, right? So it's from Richmond, it's from Washington, D.C. These are not relevant concepts to us here in Pulaski County. But the work we're doing at CALFI, led by the alumni and their family members, is very much relevant. Nobody's questioning that. It grows locally. And I think it means that this work has to start in local communities with the most impacted people. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here, but I think it's also the way to try to upend and get around the polarization we see in our country and world right now.
So lots of folks, is that okay?
Just couldn't hear you at first, Catherine, but I think you're good now.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Let me know if I pop out again. Apologies. Thanks all for this conversation today. I think it's really important. And like y'all said, it's a new conversation for a lot of folks. And I see folks on campus and off and in all aspects of our community just getting started in these conversations about equity, inclusion, diversity, and whatnot. And lots of folks looking for more opportunities to engage in these conversations, either through trainings or workshops or just opportunities to plug in. And obviously there are lots of opportunities to engage with folks doing this work, but also wondering if you all knew of like more organized trainings, workshops, et cetera, where we could spend our money locally and engage folks who are doing this work and engaging in these conversations locally, rather than bringing folks from, Richmond, DC, nationally, et cetera. So Any ideas on engaging folks in that entry level conversation, but also doing it with that local focus?
Absolutely. I can speak to CI, and what a key part of our mission is community education and intergenerational empowerment. And this speaks to how power is at the center of everything, and people should be close to that power who are most directly affected. We just received a $20,000 grant from the Virginia Humanities, which will go towards our Learning Resource Action Center, which is really designed to do the kind of grassroots community-based skills training around these exact conversations with members who live here locally, who are Black and who are young and intergenerational, are from the diaspora across the US and are localized here their entire lives. So that's a key part of what we envision CI moving into, is offering these kinds of trainings and workshops for community members locally. Because I agree with you, people typically are bringing in talented folks, no doubt, right? But we got those folks right here. They're right here. What? Y'all know, they're right here. So keep an eye out for what we'll be offering. And then I also know too, CFNRV, like this is their program we're on right now. And I know these are offered every third Thursday, I believe. And so we're all here because of an existing local nonprofit reaching out. So keep showing up here too. We certainly will. We're learning a lot just from our time on this call. Andre, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll just say that, like I said before, we're working at CIA to meaningfully integrate our community education and empowerment programs throughout the organization in terms of how we engage stakeholders, regardless of their alumni or brand new to the area. And like I said before, it's all about those relationships, and from those relationships, we can understand how we can transform together. So yeah, I invite folks to continue to stay plugged into CI's upcoming event calendar, specifically those education and empowerment programs, where we'll be offering things specifically related to Black historic preservation work, community organizing, grassroots community organizing skills, and things that our community is asking for. So we want to be in community with you all as representatives of your respective organizations and groups, and hope that you'll join us.
And what I'd like to say, I would like to thank Lindsay for today. I love, I like to classify myself as a thinker, and I love when we have think tanks like this, sessions where we can come together and have dialogue, because you cause me to think. I may not say it all right now and generate what I'm thinking in this session, but I go away from here with thoughts, and I'll have thoughts tomorrow, and so I've been so engrossed in getting CALFE from beyond a cognitive concept into something that's real. We are going to be a real entity. Hopefully by this time next year, we'll be open. So that's been the focus of my thinking. But here today, as I listen to you all, and I want to thank everyone for being in attendance today. You're making me think about what's next, the next layer and things like that. And so I don't have all the answers or responses now, but I will the next time. Maybe not all of them, but I will have more thoughts and things, because that's the way I operate. And so I appreciate Andre and Chris. When we can have sessions like that, I think Jill put out there that if any of you would like Jill and I to show up and talk about CALFE, we're your people, we're glad to do that. Again, it's going back by what Chris said about building relationships and things and all, but I hope we can do this again sometime in the near future and have some different topics and things like this. So, so I appreciate that. If there's been one thing from COVID-19, has been the Zooming. you know, the ability to conference, you know, to sit in my family room and talk with wonderful, knowledgeable, intelligent people such as in attendance here today. And so haven't had that opportunity before. It reminds me of the days when I was on a college campus. Just sometimes the talk between classes was just so, you know, around the lunch table or something, you know, was, it just reminds me how rich that was and all. And so we're, this makes us part of a little family. And so I hope you'll go from here today and say, I had the most, you know, intriguing Zoom meeting this morning. And I learned this and I learned that and all. And so we're making gains like this. And so I welcome these opportunities and I applaud the organizers of these opportunities.
Please go ahead, Chris.
I'd like to say, well, it's gonna be, this is Debbie. I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's here today. And I would also like to say that we need to continue to have meetings like this. It is very informative, but we also need to work together and help each other out as we go along this journey that we're going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Listen, I just want, what is the tendency that causes people to look for experts on the outside rather than looking internally to the people on this call? All of us too, but in the particular context of what we're talking about, what culture is saying, go bring that person from Richmond to this community to talk about it? Why are we not going, well, Mr. Hickman obviously is an expert and obviously Miss Debbie Sherman-Lee. And that's what I see CFNRV doing today and modeling that really well. And then just giving us a space to talk openly. Yeah. This is what we need. This is what we need. So thank you all.
Absolutely. So I know we're almost at time. One quick last thing I wanted to ask, what's the best way to keep track of CalFE's work and the CI's work? Where should we follow you? Do you have newsletters? Anything you want to plug, please do.
Go ahead, Jill.
I'll put a link in the chat for where you can sign up to get CalFE's newsletter. We don't send out lots and lots of messages and we won't share your email with anybody. So please sign up to get that. And if you don't get it from the chat, you can go to our website, calfeeccc.org, and sign up right on that front page.
Chris, Andre, I applaud your efforts and all. I like I said, I got hijacked by CalFE. Otherwise, I would have been right involved with CI more, but it's only one of me. And so, and I'm getting elderly, as you pointed out. So I'm just, but I'm aware of what you all are doing and I applaud you. And let me say this, this is a personal thing. I went to CalFE training school, excuse me, grades 1 through 7. And I learned stuff at that school. And it was a foundation for my education. I went to CI for 2 years and I still learned some more stuff. But the biggest thing I learned at CI, and I'm grateful for those memories, I learned how to be Black. I was an elementary student, you know, I was playing cowboys and Indians and doing things like that and doing what young kids did. But when I got to CI, you folks can't know, Debbie knows about this. That campus was so rich. I mean, it had different buildings. It was like, when I stepped off that bus, it was just, it was like stepping into New York City or something. I mean, I just was amazed. And you know, I learned that it was important to shine your shoes and have a crease in your pants and in your shirt sleeve, because that's how the brothers did it back then. They dressed nice. The girls, you know, were proper. It was just a whole world. I learned about music, and sometimes the band would be performing and they would go outside on the campus and the drum beats would play the drummers would play the cadence And it was exciting to hear that. And the teachers would allow us to go over to the windows to look out and see the CI Golden Tiger Band, marching, through the campus or something like that. And lunchtime, I was with, made new friends from Radford, from Christiansburg, from Charlottesville, from Florida, from all over. And so I'm pushing Calfee because we have this dream. But I want Chris and Andre to know CI has a special place in my heart, and I can't begin to describe what that was like for me. Just a young kid from Pulaski being thrown into that climate and culture and what all it provided for me. So whatever I want for Calfee, I also want for CI.
And we echo that and sell it. Man, we've been saying at CI, as we rise, so will others. And as Calfee rises, so will others. And this is real, because we want buildings restored, but we need the body restored. That's so important. That's so important. And so we truly mean all power to the people as they are living in Southwest Virginia to preserve this underpreserved history. So Mr. Hickman, what Andre and I do, and Demaya here, as young people, we're looking to steward this for the elders. We see this as a duty. This is our duty. This is a mantle that we have a duty to steward. And we very much see our shared family in this together. So we bless Roanoke, we bless Pulaski, we bless Radford, and we bless Montgomery County. Absolutely.
And thank you all for being an audience to let us say these things this morning. So I want you to know that doesn't not go not noticed, but it is appreciated from me. I appreciate you all in attendance today.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing time. Just listening to your stories, could probably keep talking for hours. Thank you so much for sharing time, for joining us today. It's wonderful to see you all, and looking forward to the celebrations this weekend for sure. And just like y'all said, of building those relationships. And this is one way to do that. So thank you so much. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day and week, and please stay in touch. So take care, everyone.